welcome to video 2 of this series where we are talking about window functions. So our window functions are used to calculate sums and averages within some specified subset of our data. So we can specify this as a range of rows or a range of values or an interval of time that we want to get the output of some function over. So for our windows, we define where we want the window to start and where we want it to end, right? And we can say, instead of giving it a specific location to start and end, we can say, I want you to start at a position 3 rows before where I currently am. And in that case, you would create a moving window. Or you can say that we want to start at the very beginning of our data set and get everything up to the current point that I am at in the data set. Or we can say we want to start at a certain point and get everything to the end of the data set, so it is continually adding data into what's being calculated in this window function as new data is added. So we'll see some examples of how we do both of those things. And this follows the same format that our other analytic functions that we've talked about do, where we have the name, or we have the analytical function, and then whatever we need to pass into that function, the word over, and then in parentheses here is the function that we are using to create the window of data that we are interested in. And then as cumulative cells is just an alias that we are creating for this. So in this case, we're selecting the month and the sum of units sold for that month. And then we're also deriving a value for this attribute we're calling cumulative sales, which is going to be the sum of units sold for each month, starting at the beginning of our data, going back as far as we can, and where we currently are. Okay, so we're ordering by month number, rows between unbounded, so going back as far as we can, preceding, and current row. Okay, so what's happening here is in January we had a sum of units sold of 371, and since this is the first month of the year, our cumulative sales are 371. Okay, in February we sold 414 units, so our cumulative sales are going to be 371 plus 414, 785. And then in March, we sold another 350 units, so that means our cumulative sales are 1135. And so this just, with this window function, this just keeps adding up our cumulative sales from each month until we see at the very end of the year, we sold a total of 4,415 units. Okay, so our window function is going back as far as our data exists and calculating whatever the output of this analytical function is up to the current row of our data set. Now we can create a moving average by, instead of saying unbounded as our starting point, we have basically the same function here, except we say order by month, rows between 3 preceding and current row. Okay, so what this is going to do is give you a moving average of your sales. Okay, and moving averages can be really useful for kind of smoothing out when you have spikes in your sales, and can give you a more accurate picture of what's happening. In January, when we had 371 sales, of course the average of just 371 is just 371. In February, when we had 414 sales, we want to know what the average sales for January and February are. So that's 371 plus 414 divided by 2, well, 392.5. Then in March, we want so our sales for March were 350, and we want to know what our average sales for the last 3 months have been. So that's just 371 plus 414 plus 350 divided by 3, 378.333. Okay. Now in April, again, we're doing a rolling window of the average. So this is going to give us the average of February, March, and April, now leaving January behind. So 414 plus 350 plus 396 divided by 3 is 386.75. Maybe I messed up by one number there, but at any rate, you see what is happening here. And when we have things like this big spike in November, where we went from 356 to 427 and then down to 363, our moving average kind of normalizes that variability a little bit, because this is some kind of seasonal spike or something like that, and perhaps would be a little bit misleading for us to be able to make predictions about what our inventory levels should be or what our sales expectations should be. So just another tool that might provide some very useful data. So that's it for our window functions, and in the next video we will talk about how we can bring some of this together to create data models and do some basic predictive analysis in our structured query language.